All right, hi everyone. My name is Stacia, and I am a fourth year student at the University of Virginia. I'm originally from San Francisco, California, and I spent 3 or 4 months in Buenos Aires as an exchange student. And so I wanted to talk about today the differences between American and Argentine culture. And obviously, I'm just scratching the surface here. I'm sure there'll be other kind of changes and new things that you experience while you're in the United States, but I think it's an important discussion to have. And hopefully, I can also provide some resources on embracing those cultural differences. All right. So, first, let's talk about culture shock. Culture shock is defined as the feeling of disorientation experienced by someone who is suddenly subjected to an unfamiliar culture, way of life, or set of attitudes. And that will be you coming from Argentina to the US. But for me, it was me coming from the US going to Argentina. And I remember when I first arrived in Argentina, our program leaders gave us kind of a summary of how it feels to experience culture shock and how there's this cycle of culture shock, which is detailed here. And so they were saying, okay, when you first arrive, you're just so excited to be in a new place. That's that honeymoon stage that you see there. But then after maybe several weeks, I think the time periods vary by person, you'll kind of realize, oh, there's all these things that are different. There's all these things that I can do so easily back home, but are challenging for me here because I'm unfamiliar with the culture. I'm not as comfortable in the language. And so that's the second period, negotiation, kind of realizing that life is different here. And over time, though, you reach that adjustment period and you kind of gain strategies for dealing with those differences. Um, I remember for me, didn't have a laundry machine at home, and so I would go to the lava rop and get my laundry done. And even at the very beginning, even that like small interaction with the people that were working there made me so nervous because I didn't even know I didn't even know how to ask like, can you please do my laundry? And by kind of the end period, I had reached this period of mastery where I knew how to navigate the bus system that was kind of super crazy and unfamiliar initially. I knew how to get around, I knew how to order a coffee, and just very small things that you do so easily in your home country and in your native language that you kind of don't realize that you're going to have to deal with when you move to a different place. I remember I would tell my host mom, "Oh, I'm going out to do my laundry." And I thought that the word for laundry was lavanda. Like, "Oh, voy a hacer mi lavanda." And after like probably 2 months of me saying this to her anytime I would go do my laundry, she was like, "Stacia, look, like lavanda means like lavender. It's like a flower. It's like the purple flower." I was like, "Oh my gosh." So, there'll be embarrassing moments, but everyone will be very understanding of the fact that you are new to this culture, not new to the language, because obviously English skills are very high, but there are just things that are ultimately going to be different and potentially challenging. But there's also that reverse culture shock that I'm sure you will experience down the line, where when you return to your home country, there are certain things that you will have gotten accustomed to having been abroad, and it ends up being kind of this weird, oh, I miss that from there, but I also love being home and having this. And so these are the stages of culture shock that you may experience, or maybe you experience them differently over different periods of time. But I think it's good to be cognizant of the fact that this tends to occur for most people. I wanted to talk about some customs that might be different in the United States. First is tipping culture. From my memory in Argentina, there is tipping culture as well, 10% ish, maybe. That's how I was doing it at least. So hopefully that was correct. But in the US, it tends to be between 18 and 22%. And I usually do 20% for simplicity, unless it's like insanely good service, because you can just move the decimal place over and then double it. So I just like doing that math. And who you'll tip waiters when you're at a restaurant, taxi, Uber, beauty services, if you get your hair not done, your nails done. And these tips are important because their income, their wages are usually supplemented by tips. And so if you're going out to engage in one of these services, then it's important that you factor in the cost of tip because it's relatively required. Um, and you can opt into tipping people that are taking your order. Like if you're going up to the counter and ordering a coffee from a barista or those types of engagements, but that type of tipping is not as required. And I'd say usually you would just tip out for sit down service at a restaurant or kind of those more prolonged interactions. Greetings and directness. One of my main culture shocks when I was in Argentina was the greeting kiss. And in the US, I'd say among people your age, it's common to give a hug or, yeah, when you're meeting someone for the first time or saying hello, hug. And then among adults or in a professional setting, say you're meeting, I don't know, a boss, someone like that, then a nice firm handshake is a good idea. I'd say on average, Americans tend to be more direct than Argentines, but this definitely varies by region. It'll depend kind of where you're going to college. People from the south of the US and from the Midwest are known for being extra friendly. And then people from the Northeast and like New York City, up that area, are known for being extra direct. And so, yeah, you'll experience different levels of directness based on where you are. And still, while Americans tend to be direct, politeness is still important. It's good to make small talk if you can, smile at people that you pass on the street, asking kind of like you if you run into someone you kind of know, you'll be like, "Oh, how are you?" And that's more of just like hello, as opposed to like you're not going to stop and be like, "Oh, I'm doing well, like I've got a lot of stuff to do." It's just more of like a, "How are you?" "Oh, good, how are you?" And then you pass each other on the street. And then in terms of appropriate topics, I'd say what we kind of discussed in our advising group here at Education Argentina is there are certain topics that might be less common or like polite to discuss. Generally, people don't love talking about age in the U.S., especially like older people. You won't really like know their age or like talk about their age. And then I'd also say that money is less talked about. People tend to be a bit more reserved when it comes to talking about how much money they make, how much money they spend, what they pay for rent, certain things like that. It's just not as discussed. And then other things that may or may not be impolite in Argentina would also be impolite here, like talking about someone's weight or physical appearance or things like that just are not as done. Punctuality is very important. Being late, especially in an academic or professional setting, is seen as rude or disrespectful. Honestly, this even surprised me, but students arrive at class pretty early at American universities, and like at latest, I feel like I'll come in exactly on time, and I feel like I'm late because like everyone's already there. So try to arrive early or on time, as do I. Um, and then these punctuality rules are slightly different in more informal settings, like dinner with friends, but it's still important to send a text if you're running more than a few minutes behind, just out of politeness. And if you're taking public transportation, those buses and trains will tend to be running on a pretty strict schedule. That varies, but you can usually look up online or see on Google Maps when those modes of transportation will be arriving. And usually they should be on time. And last thing is if you're more than 10 or 15 minutes late to a dinner reservation, they'll probably give away your table. So be punctual to those as well. Then, after kind of talking about these customs, I also wanted to discuss ways that you can manage culture shock. Um, First, I just will say culture shock is inevitable, but I don't think it's all bad, let's just say. I feel like there are things that initially surprised me and were very different when I moved to Argentina, but that's the experience of living abroad. You're going to college in a different country because you want to experience something different, and I think it builds a lot of character and you learn so much and become just a, I don't know, more well-rounded person by the fact that you've experienced these two distinct culture. But do not hesitate if you're struggling to reach out to your RA, your resident advisor, who will be the older student that's living in your dorm. They will have practical advice and they can help point you in the direction of further resources. Also, don't hesitate to talk to your American friends about the things that are different or the things that maybe you're struggling with. I think it's great to have that kind of two-sided conversation. Your American friends will be very happy to talk to you about differences or answer any questions. There's no such thing as a dumb question, as I gave my example of completely not even mispronouncing, using the complete wrong word for laundry. But luckily, my host mom from Argentina corrected me, and that was very helpful. So don't be embarrassed, basically, at any question you have to ask. And counseling services are widely available at colleges. Usually, you can access these services through your university student health portal and schedule appointments with um, professionals to talk about these things if you really find yourself kind of struggling. And your RA will definitely review these resources for students during orientation. So whether it's related to culture shock or just kind of broader challenges that you're experiencing, definitely utilize these resources because they can be extremely helpful. And finally, just embrace those differences. Like I said, it's a great experience to be attending school and living your life in a completely different country. And don't be too hard on yourself. I made many faux pas when I was in Argentina, but I found that people were very understanding. They knew, obviously, that I was not a local and I was coming from a different place, but I was there to live there and learn new things. And I think people really respect and appreciate the fact that you're coming all the way from Argentina to be in the US. And I don't know, I think it's a very admirable thing to do. And people definitely recognize and understand that. And so, yeah, please don't be too hard on yourself. Yeah. And finally, thank you for watching. Hopefully, this offered some kind of framework for understanding the potential culture shock that may occur when you come to the US. But if you have any follow up questions, please go to the Education USA website where there's plenty of different resources. Or, of course, feel free to contact me. That's my email there. And yeah, hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks.